Alright, let's just jump right into it. This is the controls UI. It's its own scene. It doesn't have anything except for a camera and this UI object. And this UI object only has the actual document, which is Unity's UI toolkit. So this is just a standard thing that you add to create a actual thing in UI Builder. See? I made this here. These are the different parts to it. And the thing is that inside here, we're supposed to have something sort of akin to this, right? And this is all about the input and the ability to rebind. But this is kind of dull. I wanted to sort of separate visually PC controls, the mouse and keyboard, from controller. I don't want it on the same screen, per se. I want when you have a controller plugged in and you're using the controller for this to just show controller controls and otherwise PC controls. And what's great about that, let me close this, is under our art assets, we have keyboard and mouse, all these images. Pretty great. Here's ones for controllers. And the problem here is the way that things are kind of bound together. The actual input system, Unity's input system, you define these control schemes first. So we have gamepad and keyboard and mouse. Obviously, like PC versus whatever. And then for each control scheme, you have different devices. Obviously, gamepad's only going to have gamepad. Keyboard and mouse is going to have separate keyboard and mouse controls. Then these action maps that we talked about before, you have Polymode Human, you might remember that. There are these actions that can be performed while in this action map. And these actions have bindings. So in keyboard and mouse, main menu, you press escape on the keyboard. And that executes this action in this action map. For gamepad, it's the start button. These are all the things that we set up before. Now the problem is this information is very separated, which is a good thing, but it's makes it really hard to say, hey, I want this binding to have this icon and then also allow the user to rebind it. And so that's where this whole issue that I've been going through the past few weeks has been about. And I finally came up with a great solution. This here is an editor that I actually made in code completely from scratch by myself. And it's taken a long time to get here. Let me just show you. A little bit of the code. Sorry, give me a minute here. You just fast forward through this part. Okay, there we go. Alright, so the UI settings controls. Some of this stuff is obsolete now. I'll be deleting some of this stuff, but these are all custom editor menu parts that I've made right here. And each one of these, well, not that, but this. Yeah, wait a minute. Where's the actual editor? Oh, right, it's under it. The editor thing. Here we go. The asset data editor. Very simple. We just witnessed me doing this. You click on the menu, it opens the window, which then shows it. And that triggers this, which creates a tree. That's this right here. This side is the tree. And then you add nodes to that tree. The binding data node. For example, this is its own entire class. If I click on that, you can see in here that we have the input action reference, this. And then the rest of it gets pretty long and convoluted and goes into several other classes. But it's better to just show you it in action. So here's the input action. You click here. You choose any of the actual actions, like this is aim mode human / inventory. So this is one of the actions for aim mode human. Let's look at follow mode human. Here's the main menu, right? So for main menu, you notice how everything just automatically popped out like this. We have 3 fields up here that you can't touch, you can't edit. You're actually trying to fill these in by doing other stuff. So what we do here is you have this binding data right here. And these are the bindings for that action. Let me show you again, just so you're aware. So follow mode human. This is actually reading from the input action that is from the actual settings for input. That's set up from the Unity input system itself. Follow mode human, main menu. We have escape for keyboard and start for gamepad. Okay, well, which one do we want to create an icon for? How about the keyboard one, the escape key currently? Well, now we have these asset groups. What's an asset group? Well, an asset group is part of the addressables thing. Where is it? Window, asset management, addressables, groups. This is where the beauty of things come in. So every single one of our assets is now basically grouped into separate groups, really. That's what they're called. This one is just for regular PC stuff. This is for Xbox Art UI controls. That's what I've named them. And they contain the actual images for that stuff. And we can create whatever groups we want just by right-clicking, create new group, and then choosing different assets to add to that group. And the whole purpose of the editor is to bind all these things together to create the ability to rebind keys, to be able to load and unload assets at will. You can literally load entire groups of assets or individual assets, and have the memory management to unload them as well, which you can't do normally. So addressables is very powerful, allowing you to do that. And what this here is just one of those groups. You just choose it. And then it shows all the different PNG files that we have for that group. You click it. And now, as you can see, we are actually choosing what the icon should be for this binding. This took a long time. But, boy, is it worth it, because once you actually have it all set up, all you gotta do is click export. And let me get back here. Assets, Alembic, settings, binding data. It will go into here. So we're doing the escape key keyboard, right? Let's say we even wanted to change that binding. All we have to do is close the group and click here. Bam. Now we can change it. Instead of, wait. Okay, yeah, it shows which one is selected on the side here. So, escape key keyboard. So this is the keyboard one. Let's do the gamepad one. So that would be the gamepad's asset, the Xbox ones, right? And if you look at the assets, we want the start button. Or what's this? I think that's right. I'm looking at my gamepad now. Yeah, that's actually the select button. Menu. That's the one we want. Okay. And then we export it. Done. And now we have this. This asset right here. It has a weird looking name, but I assure you it's very important. Because now all I have to do in code is look in this folder, basically, for these scriptable objects, basically. That's what these are. And this data is persistent. It will, I don't have to, it won't go away when you close the game, for example, or even close the editor. It's a permanent asset in the project. And it gives me all the information I need to be able to get the texture for the actual binding of the action. And it even gives us the name of the action and the address in the addressables where it's at. So, yeah, that's basically what I've been up to for the past few weeks, is trying to make sure that we have the ability to dynamically load and unload content and have it all centralized in a place where it's very, very easy to deal with in code in the future. And what's great is these things, addressables themselves, you can actually go to like remote locations like servers. So stuff for like DLC, for example. So we're thinking about the future here with this. We can actually have this be updated later on without having to issue a new version of the game. It's just swapping out the content for it. Or we can even change part of the group in the addressables. Addressables, groups. So, right now, this is pretty static. And if you go to Tools and where is it? Play or Build, right? You have to actually build it. But they have options to update a previous build, clean out a build, and even ways to set things up to do everything remotely, like from a server. So, all this stuff that we have currently in our project locally, it could also be remote or mixed together. So, like, we can have stuff locally like we have right now, and later on we can have some like updates on an update server that would, if we ever needed to, change some stuff in here, add stuff to it, or even remove anything that we don't use, for example. but we could also just remove it locally. And thanks to adjustables, we can have it all reflect the game without making people basically have to get a new version of the game. The game itself will still remain the same executable, and this stuff here will also remain the same, with the exception of the actual address pointing to something else. That's it. And so we just keep the same file name for this, which is the binding ID. And then we can change in the tool asset data editor that I made. Oh, I have it over here. I'm going to have another option instead of exporting to load one of these files. And then you can edit it from there. So, hopefully that explains what I've been up to.